Kaila is a very unique child, kind of like me. Very small when she was born. Now she's a giant. Pretty healthy, no problems, never really needed to go to the doctor for anything, even colds. But one day, her glands were swollen. We went to go visit her grandma, and her grandma noticed it. I took her to the doctor. They looked at her. So then, when they had the labs back, the next day they called me when she was already at school. They called me and they said, "We need you to pick Kaila up and take her to Children's." So then I'm really nervous because this is kind of the same thing that happened with me when I was younger. So took her to Children's, and they ran up more labs, looked at her physically, and she looked fine. She wasn't feeling sick. They said maybe this is aplastic anemia or something that's in the same diagnosis category. So they kept her overnight because they wanted to do a bone marrow biopsy. So I allowed them to keep her overnight. They did that the next morning and got the results, and her bone marrow came back abnormal. But they weren't too worried because they're thinking maybe because she has a little virus that everything's out of whack. Even with her platelets being extremely low, she was still asymptomatic. So then one day she was playing and she cut her foot. And I'm like, okay. But then it would not stop bleeding for a couple minutes. So then that's when I made her an appointment for her physical to say, okay, let's try this again. Let's figure out what this is. That was about April or May of 2016. And I met with Dr. Margolis. And when he walked into the room, the first thing he said was, "Is your name changed?" And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got married." And he's like, "Did you have your transplant here?" I'm like, "Yes." It just was amazing because he's like, "You were my first patient. You were the reason that I dived basically headfirst into and became so interested in aplastic anemia." And I thought that was amazing. So from there on, I know he's going to be able to help Kaila. Margolis is awesome. My brother was able to be a donor for myself and my daughter, and she had her transplant in August of 2016. I think it was supposed to be done in June. And she came home, and she's been good. She had her fluids, and she even learned how to run her own pump. Because me as a nurse, I teach you to do for yourself. Her labs are good. Her immune system came back normal. She's back in school full time after being out basically a whole year. The MAC Fund, they've always been supportive. The MAC Fund nurses, the day hospital nurses, love them. I feel comfortable with them. When I have to take her to the ER, if she had a fever, I would tell the ER, "Hurry up, get my daughter upstairs to the hot unit," or to the day hospital nurses. They're used to her. They're so good at what they do. I literally couldn't thank them enough for all they've done.